207 hours. That's how long the PlayStation Tracker says I've played this game. 207 hours. I didn't touch the Dawnguard or Dragonborn expansions, but still spent 207 hours in Skyrim. And somehow, through all of that, it is one of the most engaging experiences I have had exploring a world. Before I say anything else, I need to mention that I have not played any other Elder Scrolls games. The most common criticism I have seen against Skyrim is that it is not as in-depth as Oblivion or Morrowind. While I imagine this is true, I have no frame of reference for this, and so I'm going into it as my introduction to Elder Scrolls, as anyone introduced to gaming with the generation of the PS4 and the Xbox One would likely be entering. So Skyrim. Where do I even start? I guess at the beginning. If you're anything like me, in the sense that you have eyes, when you boot up Skyrim for the first time, you see this opening cutscene, putting you in the same cart as a member of the Stormcloak Rebellion and their leader, Ulfric, being taken to your execution by Imperials, quickly pushing you into siding with the Rebellion. This world's lore is immense, and by giving you a reason to rally behind one side, it gives you an easy in to the world. The scene continues building, taking you to the execution block, and then you have to design your character. An hour later, and you're finally in costume and ready to continue with the scene. You get put in the chopping block, only for a giant dragon to attack right at that moment, saving your ass. Side note, but I am very curious why this attack happens right at this moment. It doesn't seem to be answered in-game, although knowing how huge this world is, it might have been somewhere. Personally, I'm curious if Ulfric had anything to do with it. I wouldn't put it past him to try and call a dragon out of the Time Wound and into Skyrim with a shout, so he could try to grab more power. And surely he would know the tales of ancient Nord heroes using the Elder Scrolls to defeat the dragons, sending them forward in time. For those of you who know nothing about this game, yes, all of the words I just said do mean things. And for anyone crying spoilers, really? Not only is this game old enough to pass its own age rating, but it's Skyrim. No one plays Skyrim for the plot, purely for the adventure. That point is something that made me think I would bounce off this game hard, to be completely honest. I love story focus within my games. BioShock, The Last of Us, Danganronpa, the Ace Attorney series, they all rank among my favorite games ever. Meanwhile, when I tried playing Breath of the Wild for the first time years ago, I bounced off hard. I'm sure my tastes have evolved and I've become more open to different game experiences over time, but not enough for me to have loved it as much as I did for the first roughly 150 hours of the game. Rookie numbers, am I right? What was I talking about? Oh, right. The main plot. This rambling isn't an issue tied solely to an attention span lower than my standards for Embracer Group, though, but an indication of just how little the main questline of this game means to Skyrim as a whole. But, getting back to it. You need to escape the city, now being torn apart by the dragon. You get a choice to escape with either the Imperials or the Stormcloaks. I chose the Stormcloaks because the Imperials wanted me dead anyways. Seems like the logical choice. Once you escape, you get guided to a small village along the way by the Stormcloak from the cart who saved you. He sends you off into the world, nudging you in the direction of the first major city, Whiterun, telling you to speak to the Jarl and let him know that the giant lizards are indeed back. You go kill one with the town's guard, absorb its soul, the huge, and discover you're the Dragonborn. Then if you didn't go off on your own at the first chance the game gave you, it sends you on a trek towards the middle of the massive map that you will 1000% get sidetracked away from by the countless side quests and areas of interest between points A and B. Again, I am not typically drawn to this style of experience, but I was hooked on Skyrim. Almost all of the random side areas I would explore would have some small story going on, or a shiny new trinket to grab, or just make sense within the world, like the several bandit camps. It felt like no matter where I went in the game, I was going to run into an adventure, and if I followed any of the threads it was leaving me, I would feel satisfied with what it followed through with. To show you how in-depth this goes, I want to just look at this random Daedra quest I decided to take notes on for this purpose. Daedra are gods in this world that you can get boons from by doing their will, by the way. Also, just an FYI, this section of my notebook has notes on 4 different games. This section of my notebook, that is the same size, has notes on just Skyrim. And I needed to take extra notes and insert them in for this. And I stopped early because I realized that taking notes on all of the plot elements wasn't really going to be relevant for this game. Anyways, Azura's Star, an unbreakable soul gem. Someone has tried to store their own soul inside to become immortal. The place where the star is has sunk into the sea. Cool, let's explore. Reports of the guy kidnapping people from the local village to experiment on their souls. Lots of embalming tools and skeletons litter the place, fitting well for a place filled with mages experimenting with human souls. Desks have potions and soul gems they're experimenting on. The room is constantly leaking because we're underwater. Duh. Moved into an area that's completely flooded. I dove under the water and down to a lower floor that is completely submerged. There's a chest where it normally would have been placed in these. They're standard towers, rewarding me with its contents for knowing where it would be in the layout. In another room, people have moved their beds to one side of the room so it is out of the water. Great detail. Fighting through skeletons. They're falling to pieces as I cut through them. Cool. The necromancers keep reanimating each other in combat, showing the uniqueness they add as enemies. Again, this is all just set dressing for a single Daedra quest, which is smaller than the other side quest lines, and there are 15 of. There's a book on the desk, not tied to the mission. It's a folk tale about a boy getting his soul put in a black soul gem by a Draymora, a very relevant tale to what is going on in this place. This guy's robe is extra powerful because he's an archmage, more powerful than a regular mage. The bottom shelf is just skulls, while everything higher up is more valuable to protect it from the water. Make my way to a connecting hallway between 2 parts of the underwater tower, and it's got a caved-in portion where water is flowing in, but there are rocks blocking its way. It goes down and is clearly filling the hall I initially entered in. Came across some necromancers and I'm listening into what they're talking about. They're discussing whether to kidnap more people or sacrifice their own members for more experiments. Another book. This one about dealings with Daedra and conjuration. The school of magic that is used for trapping souls. More books like these on the shelves. Soul gem fragments suggesting unsuccessful experiments with them. All of the cells are empty because they mentioned they were out of subjects to test on. Other cells in this game are often populated, not so barren. This necromancer is a master, and so the skeletons he reanimates don't just fall apart like the ones we fought earlier, but stay whole when they're killed. There's no traps in this tower like there are in a lot of the other buildings in this game, because there's no one around. The tower's submerged after all. The guy who tried putting his soul in Azura's Star is now a skeleton. Guess that didn't work out, hey. There's a grimoire written by him beside him, claiming victory over Azura, saying that he has won. It states that they purposefully sunk the place to remain hidden while they experiment on souls. The star itself is broken. Nothing happens when picking it up. He lost in his hubris. like the boy in the earlier book. You can take the star to Azura or this elf dude who pitied him. I brought it to Azura because fuck that guy, and the elf tried to question my authority as Archmage. Plus Daedra are powerful and I'm power hungry, damn it. The guy's soul is trapped within the star. Azura sends me within it to clean him out of it. He's feeding on souls, to keep himself going in the star. Hence why they needed more subjects despite the experiment being done. They were sacrificing souls to him. Because irony, I trapped his soul in a black soul gem. Azura gives me her star as a reward. The elf guy now doesn't like me because I did what Azura says. While they're not all like this, the sheer enormity of them and the attention of detail that's common made the exploration unlike any other games I've experienced. And this was all between all the guild quest lines, which functioned as more in-depth stories within the game, where you can restore the Thieves Guild to their glory, achieve glory as a hunter with the companions, join the Dark Brotherhood of Assassins, the best one in the game in my opinion. If you're only going to play one guild quest line, make it this one, and heaps of others. No Bard's Guild questline though. Was kind of disappointed by that one, to be honest. Something to note though, is while the detail is very impressive, and the stories are more in-depth, they are not complex. You're the crucial, super important person to everything you get drawn into. The decisions are never morally complicated. You do grunt work with some basic characters doing basic things around you. Some bits are a bit more interesting, like the Dark Brotherhood questline, but for the most part, it's just basic setup to move through more of Skyrim. So how my average session of Skyrim would go is I start at the city I last saved in, do the first questline relevant to the area I'm in from the guilds or main campaign, realize there were some side stories to do in the area, go wandering off to do those, come across a cave, find a trinket in the cave pointing me somewhere else, start moving toward that new point, clearing out a bandit camp along the way only to find a dungeon which I just had to dive down, find a dragon claw which I then used to find a new tomb, a boss and some goodies, realize my inventory is full, fast travel back to one of my homes, empty my pockets and do another main quest in the city I am now in. It was addicting, to the point where whenever I passed a cave I had to dive into it, to see what secrets I could uncover within. I would stop at every point I saw because whenever I would be rewarded, not just in-game, but as a player engaging with the game. This world depth and sense of adventure it creates is entirely what holds the game up, because pretty much every other thing about it is very shallow. Your character has 3 primary stats: health, stamina, magic. Each of these can be upgraded as you level up, with health doing the obvious, magic being expended to varying degrees depending on different spells' strengths, and stamina being used up for charged attacks and allowing your character to carry more stuff without slowing to an absolute crawl. On top of this, you can get perks for different upgrade paths for leveling up. Stuff like doing more damage with specific weapons or being more stealthy, making the lockpicking minigame easier for some reason. Not sure why someone would want this ability, to be honest. It's quite easy already. It just feels like a waste of perk points. It's a decent if simplistic system, which I think works well for what is quite a complex world. It didn't need to be anything too deep, so it's not. The gameplay is just bonk enemy with sword until they die. No tactics about it really, you just bonk. You get better at bonking the more you bonk, and that's about it. You can have a companion accompany you, which, why would you not? Extra bonking is good after all, and they can carry more stuff to get around the weight limit. But that causes major issues with magic as an offensive option, meaning you're back to just bonking, because the extra carry weight is way more valuable since you can keep exploring for longer with it. The issue with spells in the game is stronger spells in this game aren't just stronger, they're also wider, and wider spells can hit and kill your companion accidentally. This means spells' usability sort of caps out by a certain point, and becomes pointless to use, pushing you into just melee and bows. And that's basically it for the systems within the game. All very basic, which is all they have to be for the majority of the game because of the adventure, but it falls apart completely when that runs out and the game collapses in on itself. And that's what happened to me in my last 50 hours. I'd explored most of the areas, the minor quests I was picking up were all pointing me back to areas I'd already cleared. Walking around the world wasn't uncovering anything new, so it just became ticking off the main quests and guild quests. Fast traveling from place to place to do the next thing. And this type of storytelling is weak from Skyrim. Their long-form stories are all very generic. 90% of the characters aren't fleshed out. Their strength is really in the storytelling of a specific scene, and that's it. So I'm just sitting there, going through all the motions as it feels more and more like it's just a chore. And it just keeps going, and I just wanted it to be over already. This feeling went on for the length of a whole game, which created a really weird feeling when looking back at it. It's like Skyrim is two completely different games. One that is just as exceptional as everyone praises it to be. 10 out of 10, no doubt, addicting beyond belief. Game of the year, of the decade, of the century. And then stapled onto the back of it is one of the least interesting, most basic games I ever played. It just didn't know when to quit and went barreling off a cliff and into the abyss. I'm sure there's people who didn't hit that wall, or more likely quit before they hit that wall, and for them this experience is untainted and holds that 10 out of 10 no asterisks. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them. I appreciate this game for everything it is, but looking back at it, I feel a lackluster feeling of slight disappointment. That it was so good and then just no longer was. A feeling that the quickness of the main questline's final battle, due to seemingly not properly accounting for doing all the side questlines before finishing the main one, does nothing to help. If anyone here is wondering if I recommend Skyrim, yeah, of course I recommend Skyrim. It's still phenomenal. It's still a brilliant world to roam around and find yourself lost in. Just, if you feel it start to fall, don't push through. Just stop. Because it will crumble, and it will crumble hard. Thanks for watching, and like the share subscribe button for more critiques by Candlelight. This game is so damn big. 207 hours. Damn. Next up should be Assassin's Creed Unity, where the script is currently a lot more story focused. So we'll see how that turns out next time. Duskin out.